I've been out for 15 days, but my body still acts like I'm standing in that cold hallway, waiting for someone to hand me a single pad and tell me that's all I get. Freedom tastes different when your first memories aren't sunlight or fresh air, but the weight of knowing your own body was something you had to negotiate for. You might think I'm exaggerating, but if you lived the way I lived for the last year, you'd understand how fast a normal thing can turn into a battlefield. When I walked out, they gave me a small plastic bag with my belongings. My ID, my cheap shoes, a tiny toiletry kit with a hotel-sized bar of soap. I stared at it longer than I should have. It reminded me of how everything was rationed inside, even dignity. The first time my cycle came in there, they gave me a pad so thin I felt it bend the second I moved. I remember holding it in my hands, trying not to panic, trying to figure out how something so small was supposed to last an entire day. You ever feel betrayed by something that's supposed to be natural? That's what it felt like. I wasn't scared of the bleeding itself. I was scared of running asking for more. Scared of being told no. In some places you can ask and they'll help you. In others you get a look that tells you you're asking for too much. I never knew which version I'd get. I'd lie in my bunk at night, praying nothing would leak, terrified of drawing attention. The fear wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, steady, suffocating. Every shift of fabric felt risky. Every step felt like a reminder that my body wasn't entirely mine anymore. And now I'm standing in my tiny bathroom outside, staring at a box of pads I bought with money I barely have, trying to convince myself I'm allowed to use as many as I need. You might think that sounds simple. It should be. But after months of counting every piece, every inch, every moment, freedom feels strange. Too open. Almost unreal. This is where my story starts. Not with crime, not with release, but with the part no one talks about. I used to think the worst part would be the walls or the rules or the silence. But no, it was the routine. The way you're taught to wait for everything, even the things your body needs without asking. There was a specific hour each week when they handed out hygiene supplies. One line, one bag, one chance. If you missed it, you waited. If they ran out, you dealt with it. And if you needed more, you hoped someone in a good mood was working that shift. Hope becomes a survival skill in there. I remember standing in that line the first month, holding my breath as the bag got lighter and lighter while they handed it out to the women ahead of me. It wasn't fear. It was anticipation mixed with humiliation. When they finally gave me mine, I felt how light it was. A couple of pads, a tiny bar of soap. That was supposed to cover everything. You know how long a normal cycle lasts. You know how unpredictable it can be. But in that place, they expect you to make it fit their schedule, not your body. And if you needed more, you asked. Asking was its own battle. Some officers would help. Others acted like you were asking for something extra, something unnecessary. I remember gripping the fabric of my shirt, trying to find the courage to walk up and ask for another pad. Just one. My voice was steady, but inside I felt small, invisible, replaceable. Outside, people buy what they need without thinking twice. Inside, you count each piece like you're rationing hope. I learned to fold pads to make them last longer. I learned to walk slowly when I felt uncomfortable so nothing shifted. I learned to ignore the burning, the irritation, the way my body protested. You might say, that shouldn't happen here. I agree. But it did. And it still does in places no one talks about. By the time I got out, I'd forgotten what it felt like to have enough. There's one day I keep replaying no matter how hard I try to bury it. It was the second month of my sentence, and my cycle hit harder than usual. I felt it coming before it even started, that heavy pull in my lower stomach, the kind that tells you this one won't be easy. I went to the desk and asked for an extra pad. Calm voice, hands steady. I tried to look confident, like it was no big deal. But the officer just glanced at the clock and said, "It's not supply day." That was it. 4 words. And suddenly my chest felt tight, like all the air in the room had been squeezed out. I remember nodding quietly, pretending I was fine, pretending I could handle it. But the truth? I wasn't fine. I walked away, feeling exposed inside my own skin. Later, during work detail, I felt the shift, that warm, sinking feeling every woman knows too well. I froze. My heart jumped. I prayed it wasn't noticeable. I walked slower, held my arms tight to my sides, trying to hide the discomfort creeping through my body. A woman next to me glanced down for half a second, then looked away without saying anything. That silence stung more than the situation itself. You ever feel humiliation without anyone saying a word? That's what it was. Quiet, heavy, sharp in a way that stays with you. I kept telling myself to breathe, to keep moving, to pretend nothing was happening. But inside, I felt myself shrinking, like my dignity was slipping with every step I took. Back in my bunk that night, I used half a roll of the thin brown paper they gave us, folding and refolding it until it looked like something that might help. It didn't. It only made everything worse. Irritation, soreness, the constant fear of being seen. And you, if you were standing where I stood that day, what would you have done? Would you ask again? Would you insist? Or would you, just like me, let the shame swallow your voice? I still don't know the right answer. 15 days out, and my body is still catching up to the idea that I'm allowed to take care of myself without asking permission. I woke up this morning with that familiar soreness, the kind that isn't dramatic, but tells you something inside hasn't healed right. Maybe it's irritation. Maybe it's an infection starting. I don't know. Inside, you push through because you don't have a choice. Out here, you're supposed to take care of it, but taking care of it costs money I don't really have. I walked into a drugstore last week, holding my breath at the wall of products. Rows and rows of pads, liners, wipes, everything I needed for months but could never get. I should have felt relieved. I didn't. I felt overwhelmed. I picked up a basic pack and stared at the price, realizing it was nearly half of what I walked out of prison with. Most people don't know this, but a lot of us leave with barely enough money for a few days. And you might grab a product without thinking twice. But for me, that choice felt like a math problem I couldn't afford to get wrong. Then there's the part no one talks about. Trying to get medical help after release. You feel something's wrong, but you're scared to be judged. You don't want a doctor looking at your chart and seeing that you just got out. You don't want to explain why you had to improvise hygiene with things that were never meant for it. I sat in a clinic waiting room 2 days ago, rehearsing what I'd say, but when they called my name, I panicked and left. My body needed help, but my pride couldn't carry the weight of another conversation about where I'd been. And it's strange, being free but still moving like you're restricted. I still stack my supplies neatly, counting them even though I don't have to. I still hesitate before opening a new pad, like I'm wasting something precious. That's what months of rationing does to you. It doesn't leave when the door opens. It stays tucked somewhere under your skin. You might never have to think about this. You might never wonder if you deserve to feel clean, safe, or comfortable during something your body does naturally. But for me, it's a fight I'm still learning how to win. I'm trying, day by day. But 15 days out isn't long enough to undo a year of survival. There's something I haven't told you yet. The part where I actually tried to change things while I was inside. It wasn't some big protest or dramatic showdown. It was a small moment, but in a place like that, small moments feel dangerous. There were a few of us, women who were tired of pretending we were fine. We whispered about how unfair it was that we had to ration something so basic. How some states promised unlimited access, yet inside our unit it felt like we were asking for favors instead of necessities. One afternoon, after another supply day where they handed us the same tiny stack, I felt something snap inside me. Not anger, more like clarity. I walked up to an officer. Not the worst one, not the kind who'd shut you down before you opened your mouth. And I told him we needed more. I said it calmly, my hands steady even though my heart was knocking against my ribs. I wasn't rude, I wasn't loud, I just told the truth. He sighed. Not angry, just tired. Said they were following guidelines. Said if we wanted changes, we'd have to file a request through the formal system. You might think that sounds reasonable, but inside, filing a request feels like walking into a room with no windows and hoping someone notices you. Most women don't bother. But I did. I wrote everything down, the shortages, the discomfort, the fear of running out during heavy days. I didn't use dramatic words, I didn't blame anyone. I just explained what it felt like to go through a full cycle without enough supplies. A week later, we were called in for a unit discussion. Nothing changed immediately, but for the first time someone actually looked at us, listened, asked questions. It wasn't a miracle. We didn't suddenly get unlimited supplies. But the next month, they added a few extra pads in the distribution. Maybe it was coincidence, maybe it was pressure, maybe it was the letter, I don't know. But it felt like a victory. A small piece of proof that we weren't invisible. And you might think that's nothing. But inside, where everything feels out of your control, getting one more pad than usual feels like reclaiming an inch of your body. An inch of your dignity. When I walked out 15 days ago, I carried that inch with me. It's not much, but it's enough to keep me standing. I never thought something as ordinary as a pad could shape the way I see myself, but it did. Inside, it became a symbol of what I didn't have. Choice, comfort, dignity. Out here, I'm learning to let my body belong to me again. Slowly, carefully, 1 month at a time. And you, if you've never had to think twice about meeting your own basic needs, hold on to that privilege, protect it, respect it. Someone else is fighting for it right now. I'm not fully healed, but I'm here, I'm trying, and this time I'm not asking anyone for permission.